She never imagined one decision could change the course of her entire life. But that morning, everything she loved demanded a choice she wasn't ready to make. The sun peeked softly through the worn blinds of her small kitchen. A gentle breeze carried the scent of morning coffee. Yet inside her heart, the storm was brewing. Marlene, an African-American mother in her late 50s, had always been the quiet pillar of strength in her family. She carried the weight of decades of responsibility on her shoulders, from raising her 3 children to supporting her aging parents, and managing a household that never seemed to rest. Her eyes lingered on a framed photograph from years ago, her younger self, radiant and ambitious, with dreams of a career she had promised herself she would chase. But life had other plans. Every decision she had made since then had been about sacrifice. Late nights helping her children with homework, skipped dinners to save money, missed medical appointments to ensure the family stayed on track. It was all routine for her, invisible to everyone else. But that morning felt different. A letter lay on the counter, its envelope crinkled and weighty with unspoken truths. The contents could change everything. Her eldest, walking by with a smile, didn't notice the tremble in her hands as she held it. Marlene knew this was no ordinary choice. It was the defining moment she had been preparing for her entire life. She sipped her coffee slowly, staring at the rising sun. The neighborhood birds chirped, oblivious to the turmoil inside her. Should she finally pursue the opportunity she had denied herself for decades? Or continue silently carrying her family's burdens as she always had? Every fiber of her being screamed in opposing directions, one for herself, one for the ones she loved more than life. Her heart raced, her mind heavy with the weight of invisible chains. This wasn't just about sacrifice anymore. It was about identity, pride, and the love that defined her existence. Marlene's journey had always been about others, but now, she faced a crossroads that demanded courage the world might never see. The choice she made that day would ripple through her family's lives forever, and the audience would be holding their breath, eager to see what she would do next. She carried more weight than anyone could see, and that night, the world reminded her just how heavy her heart really was. Narration story flow. Marlene, a 52-year-old African-American mother, had spent decades putting her family first. She had become invisible in the eyes of the world, yet the strength she carried was monumental. Her 3 children, now grown into their late 20s and early 30s, had their own lives, yet crises always seemed to land back in her lap. Bills, medical appointments, school fees for her grandchildren, the endless cycle left her physically tired, but emotionally determined. Her husband, 55, sat silently in the living room, scrolling through messages on his phone. Though he loved her dearly, he couldn't see the emotional storms raging behind her calm exterior. Marlene had learned early on that expressing her struggles only added weight to others' burdens, so she kept her pain locked inside. That night, the tension in the house was palpable. The children were arguing about finances, the youngest, 28, frustrated with a career setback. Marlene listened quietly, her heart aching, knowing that she had carried more than her share for years. Her shoulders hunched as she went to the kitchen, rubbing her temples, reflecting on the sacrifices she had made, the job she gave up, the friends she left behind, the personal dreams she silently buried. Yet even in exhaustion, there was resilience. Marlene brewed herself a cup of tea, sat by the window, and let herself feel the weight she had carried so long. Each choice had been for her family, and though it cost her dearly, the love that fueled her was unwavering. Her family didn't always understand, and that was the tragedy. But it was also the story of countless African-American mothers who bore their burdens silently, gracefully, and with unparalleled strength. Tonight, Marlene's heart carried not just her responsibilities but the quiet hope that one day her sacrifices would be truly seen. Every smile she showed the world was a lie, because the pain she carried could destroy her family if the truth ever came out. For years, Marlene had mastered the art of smiling through pain. At 52, she had learned that African-American mothers like her weren't allowed to break, not in front of their children, not in front of their husbands, and definitely not in front of the world. Strength was expected. Silence was survival. That evening, after the house finally grew quiet, Marlene sat alone in the living room. The clock ticked loudly, almost mocking her racing thoughts. Her body ached, but it was nothing compared to the ache in her chest. There was a secret she had been carrying for years, one that had shaped every sacrifice she ever made. She glanced at her phone resting on the table. A missed call from the doctor stared back at her. She hadn't told anyone about the appointments. Not her 55-year-old husband. Not her 32-year-old daughter. Not even her closest friend. She told herself she was protecting them, but deep down, she knew she was afraid of becoming a burden after spending a lifetime carrying everyone else. Memories flooded her mind. The nights she skipped meals so her children could eat. The job offer she turned down because it required moving away. The dreams she buried quietly, convincing herself that love meant self-erasure. Each memory tightened the knot in her chest. From the hallway, she heard laughter, her children talking, unaware. Her 30-year-old son joked about work. Her 28-year-old daughter planned a weekend outing. They sounded happy, safe, and that was all Marlene ever wanted for them. A tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it quickly, even though no one was watching. This was her curse and her strength, feeling everything deeply, yet showing nothing at all. That night, Marlene whispered a prayer into the silence, not for herself, but for the strength to keep going without being seen. But fate was already moving, and soon, the truth she had hidden so carefully would demand to be heard. She thought she could survive anything, until the night her body, her heart, and her secrets all began to collapse at once. That night, everything unraveled. Marlene, 52, stood alone in the kitchen, gripping the counter as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. Her breath felt shallow, uneven. For years, she had ignored the signs, the exhaustion, the dizziness, the pain. She brushed off as just stress. African American mothers like her were taught to push through, not slow down. From the living room, voices grew louder. Her 30-year-old son was frustrated, pacing back and forth. Bills were overdue. Work hours had been cut. The weight of the household was shifting, and without thinking, everyone assumed Marlene would catch it. Her 55-year-old husband tried to calm things down, but even he looked overwhelmed. No one noticed Marlene's hands shaking. No one saw the fear in her eyes. Suddenly, her phone vibrated. A message from the doctor. "We need to talk. Please come in as soon as possible." Her heart dropped. She pressed the phone against her chest, fighting the urge to scream. This was the moment she had feared. The moment where silence could no longer protect her. Her vision blurred, and for the first time in decades, Marlene felt truly weak. She stepped forward and her knees buckled. The crash echoed through the house. The room went silent. Her 32-year-old daughter was the first to run in, panic written across her face. Her 28-year-old daughter followed, trembling. Her 30-year-old son froze, guilt flashing in his eyes. And her husband, he knelt beside her, realizing too late how much she had been carrying alone. As Marlene lay there, staring at the ceiling, tears streamed down her face, not from pain, but from relief. The secret was no longer hers alone. This was her breaking point. But it was also the moment everything began to change. The truth she hid for years wasn't to protect herself. It was to protect everyone she loved. The hospital room was painfully quiet. Marlene, 52, lay on the narrow bed, pale under the harsh white lights. Machines hummed softly around her, measuring a body that had finally given in after decades of sacrifice. Her family stood frozen, afraid to speak, afraid to hear what they already sensed was coming. The doctor stepped in, calm but serious. Chronic illness, years untreated, manageable if it had been addressed earlier. The words hit harder than any scream. Her 55-year-old husband felt his chest tighten. Her 32-year-old daughter's eyes filled with tears instantly. The room felt smaller, heavier, like the air itself was collapsing. Marlene closed her eyes, and then she spoke. "I knew," she whispered. Silence. She told them everything. The early symptoms, the doctor visits she never mentioned, the medication she stopped buying so her children could have what they needed, the job she refused because it meant losing health, insurance coverage during uncertain times. "I didn't want to be another problem," she said softly. "I wanted you all to live without fear." Her 30-year-old son broke down. He turned away, covering his face, guilt crushing him. Her 28-year-old daughter reached for her mother's hand, shaking. How had they missed this? How had love blinded them? Her husband fell to his knees beside the bed. "I should have seen it," he whispered. "I should have protected you." Tears streamed down Marlene's face, not from pain, but from release. For the first time in years, she wasn't carrying the truth alone. This wasn't just her story anymore. It was the story of countless African American mothers who sacrificed their bodies, dreams, and health for their families quietly, invisibly, and without complaint. And now, the family had to face a truth that could never be undone. She thought her sacrifices would be forgotten, but love has a way of revealing the truth when it matters most. The days after the hospital visit felt different. For the first time in years, Marlene, 52, wasn't the one holding everything together. She lay resting at home, sunlight spilling softly across her bedroom. Her body was weak, but her heart felt lighter than it had in decades. Her 32-year-old daughter took charge of the house without being asked. Meals were cooked. Bills were discussed openly. Her 30-year-old son adjusted his work schedule to help more. Her 28-year-old daughter sat beside her mother every evening, listening, really listening to stories she had never heard before. And her husband, 55, he stayed close. Too close, some might say. But to him, every second felt like borrowed time. He watched her sleep, realizing how much love had been quietly poured into their family, and how little had been returned. One afternoon, Marlene woke to soft voices in the living room. Her children were talking about her, about everything she had given up. "She never complained," her son said quietly. "She never asked for anything," her eldest daughter added, tears in her voice. "She just loved us," the youngest whispered. Marlene felt her eyes fill. That evening, they gathered around her bed. No distractions, no phones, just honesty. Her husband took her hand. "You carried us for too long," he said. "Now let us carry you." In that moment, Marlene understood something powerful. Sacrifice doesn't disappear, it waits to be recognized. She smiled, not the kind of smile that hides pain, but the kind that comes from being seen. The story didn't end with illness. It ended with awareness, with love spoken out loud, with a family transformed. And for every African American mother watching, especially those over 50, who gave their best years without asking for applause, this story was for them. Because love like hers was never meant to go unnoticed.